Okay, well, good morning, everybody. We should be live. That's what my little icon on my screen says. Good morning. Bill Lester here with Hernando County Extension, and welcome to today's plant clinic. I have several guests on here. For starters, my regular co-host, Lily Browning. Good morning,
Hello,
Lily. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm just great, busy like always, day full of meetings, but we're here with the plant clinic, so I need to be on kind of question answering mode, I
Yeah.
guess now. But that's okay because I have somebody to help with all the really hard questions. We have Vanessa Camperverd here with us today, who is with Miami, or what county is that? Miami,
Miami-Dade County.
Miami-Dade.
Miami-Dade County Extension, and she
Yeah.
worked with commercial agriculture down there. And she shared a link with me from a video that she created to kind of explain to everybody what they do down there and how important commercial agriculture and horticulture is. So do you want me to go ahead and just start with trying to play the video? Let's see if it works.
Okay.
Okay. Let me go ahead and see if this is going to work or not.
We shall see.
Yes, we're going to find out the hard way, I guess. So let me go ahead and go to full screen, and hopefully the sound is going to work for everybody so that you're able to hear it. So let's give it a shot.
It's working.
Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Campoverde, and I'm the University of Florida IFAS Miami-Dade County Extension agent working with the horticulture industry. But what is the horticulture industry? Let's find out more. Thanks to our great weather, the horticulture industry in Miami-Dade County is large and diverse, with more than 1,300 nurseries certified by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, producing and distributing ornamental plants to homeowners, other growers, landscapers, stores, and garden supplies. It's also known as the environmental horticulture, green, ornamental, or nursery industry as well. We are the number one county in Florida for ornamental plants production and second in the country.
Wow.
The economic impact of the horticulture industry for Miami-Dade County show how it contributes to personal income and job growth in local and regional economies. The most recent study in Florida's 67 counties in 2010 showed that only for Miami-Dade County, this industry created nearly 40,000 jobs. What are the types of nurseries in this industry?
Field nurseries typically produce palms, trees, and large shrubs. Container nurseries, plants grown in containers, outdoors, indoors, or in greenhouses. Also, we have retail and wholesale nurseries. Retail nurseries are the ones which sell to the general public. Wholesale nurseries are the ones which sell only to businesses such as other nurseries and to commercial gardeners. What crops grow in Miami-Dade County? Due in large part to a climate favorable for the production of subtropical species in the open, we have a wide variety of crops, such as bedding plants, tropical foliage, indoor and outdoor palms, large tropical trees and shrubs, tender perennials, specialties like herbs, orchids, and bromeliads. Do growers plant the same crops every year?
It's a guess. You gotta try and read your market. each market is different, and it's a guess production based on what you think you can sell, or what the market will bear. It is a
Really?
guess. It's not. You have to feel market out for different new products, possibly. And some of them work, and then some of them really don't work as well.
What does a client buy from nurseries?
It depends on the market. Are we talking about selling it to a homeowner who doesn't have a lot of space and they can only buy small plants? So that's really going to appeal to them.
Yeah.
Or somebody that's doing a big hotel and they need 12-foot plants for their lobby.
Right.
So that market is constantly, well, it's fluctuating. It goes with the economy. When the economy's good, businesses have money to spend, the big plants sell. When they start cutting their budgets, the big plants are not in the budget. They're cutting. So they're going with less plants, smaller plants. So it's just every year you don't know. You just have to be prepared to ride the new trends and come up with something new and not try to be stuck in the same box all the time.
How does the University of Florida IFAS extension work with the horticulture industry in Miami-Dade County? Growers can be assisted anytime by the University of Florida IFAS Miami-Dade County Extension with non-biased research-based information to help the daily issues in question. For more information, please visit us at or stop by our host at Thank you for joining us for another beautiful day in the warm Miami-Dade County horticulture industry.
Okay, let me turn my mic back on there. Okay, I think that actually
Yeah.
works. Hopefully, everybody was able to hear the audio from that.
Did you see I was dancing?
I know, yeah, you guys picked some pretty good music for that also. So,
That was
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, that's a little introduction. I thought it will be important to have some graphics, some actually images for people to get familiarized with, our environment, our type of crops, which even within the same state of Florida, they are just different. We have a long state, and
Yes.
we need to understand that microenvironments are an important factor for different crops. So all the hot tropical crops are down here. If you ever want to come south before going to the Keys, stop in Homestead, and you will find a lot of nurseries to look at.
Yeah. We
I
get a
love
lot
it
of
down there, and
viewers.
I visited some of the nurseries, and they're impressive. They're huge.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever stop learning for a new plant or variety. It's a jungle.
Well, one of the problems that you guys kind of cause indirectly, I guess, is we have so many new residents moving here from other states. They move here from New York or New Jersey or Michigan or wherever, and they move to Florida, and they figure that all of Florida is the exact same. So
Yeah.
here in Hernando County, I can grow coconuts, and I can grow bananas, and I can still grow apples and lavender like I did up north. And it's a real big learning curve to realize exactly what grows here in Central Florida is different from the Panhandle and very different from down in Homestead, because
Mhm.
you guys can grow a lot of different things down there that I know would probably do well in my yard during the summer, but during the winter, they're going to be really unhappy here.
Yeah, and the same work. It works both ways too, because
Yeah.
people who might came South Florida first, they got used to these subtropical crops, and if they happen to maybe move into Central or North Florida,
Yes.
they think they can bring the beautiful plants with them, and then they start seeing some decline, some sadness, or during winter time they're not as luscious as they used to be. So for this reason, I always like to bring the U.S. hardiness zones and talk about the environmental factors that are a key for any crop that will thrive. So it's like us when we move. If you transplant me from Miami-Dade to Michigan, I probably won't leave my house for at least 6 months until next summer. The same with plants as well that are used to the high temperature, high humidity, and the amount of light we receive down here. So it's an adaptation process, and it's important as for human subjects and especially for plant crops too.
A lot of the people in my classes I've noticed, because Bill and I kind of refer to people who are new to Florida from up north, but I've noticed probably 30% of them, they have come from South Florida. Now, maybe they came from up north originally 40 years ago, but they've gotten very used to South Florida, and they're escaping the crowds in South Florida and coming up here where it's a little more rural in areas. And so it's not the northern brain that we have to retrain. It's the South Florida brain that we have to retrain as far as plants and gardening goes.
Yeah, because then I always like to show to our gardeners like this minimum temperature guidelines from the U.S. hardiness zones. There is an interactive map that you can share with your master gardeners, and based on their zip code, because sometimes you don't want to get complicated with I don't remember, and maybe you just have this interactive map. They enter the zip code and it will tell them what kind of average minimum temperature they will have in their region. So with that, you can also relate it to some of the Florida-friendly landscaping maps that the University of Florida has to find what kind of plants actually will do better. It doesn't mean that you cannot adapt a plant. It just means that it will require much time and caring if you want to bring your luscious tropical orchid that came from, I don't know, a very hot environment. And that's what we're known from, orchids, bromeliads. But down here, it's, I work directly with commercial ornamental nurseries mainly. And it just, the colors, sizes, amounts, varieties, names, it's overwhelming. I'll never stop learning. That's what I keep saying.
Yeah. That's why we're all in this business, because we never stop learning. But around here, I mean, our county, we are definitely 9A. We're fully in 9A. The county below us is kind of half and half of 9A and 9B. But then below that, we can go from here to Tampa, and the plants are just tremendously different. And that's not even an hour drive. And they can do a little bit more of the tropicals than we can do up here. There's a big, every time you watch the news, especially in the winter, Bill can attest to this, in our little spot in Brooksville is the coldest place in the viewing area of our Central Florida, West Central Florida news. It always is. It can be 40 in Tampa and easily 30 here.
Yeah, in the inlands. And the same happened down here in South Florida, in the Homestead area, where most of the commercial plant nurseries are located. We may have a forecast for, upper or lower 50s, which is we unheard of, at least in the past year. Nowadays, we are seeing a trend on changing climate.
Yes.
And temperatures are going a little more extreme that we are used to. So even within a same location, let's say a nursery, plant nursery, we can have a forecast for an overall average of low 50s, but there are microenvironments within the same nursery that might go way lower in temperature and drastically. And that's when we have to worry about the health and look of these plants, because remember, this is a business. They're not growing one or two plants for the leisure, or they can put them back in their living room, like maybe we want to take care of one plant, but they are growing hundreds, if not thousands of plants that are meant to be shipped or sell in next spring or next season. And if there is a damage because of cold damage, for example, it's going to cause economic losses to a whole nursery, which will then affect jobs, security, and actually nurseries and landscaping, which is very tied to the plant production. It's one of the main revenues in Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County is known, like I put it on the video, as the #1 county in production area of foliage ornamentals in the state. So it's a lot of movement. And I would say even foliage in general, since Florida, it's known for its foliage industry under a whole U.S., just neck to neck in ornamental production with California.
Okay, I was going to ask what the first one was. I figured it was California.
Yeah, they always ask for the first one. But it's a very important industry that not many people realize when they think of Miami-Dade. They think of Miami Beach, which is nice, and all this tourist industry. But agriculture, and especially ornamentals, it's a booming industry that it's very dynamic, and it's always changing and looking for new crops, because people love the novelty, the colors, the foliage, this new plant, what to bring. Even within one crop like orchids, there's so many species. I'm not an expert in orchids. There are people who just devoted themselves to those, and there are many species. They cross them. The same with bromeliads, and then we go into maybe crotons, ficus.
Yes.
There's so many of them. It's
Caladiums, yeah.
Well, Vanessa, as it turns out, our very first question for today is about orchids. So,
oh boy, I already said my disclaimer.
perfect timing, I guess. And I'm not an orchid expert either. If anybody's really interested in orchids, we do have a master gardener, Gary Gethin, who we've had before on Facebook Live, and we just put him on the schedule. Let me check my schedule. He will be here on Facebook Live on Tuesday, October 27th. So he's going to have another class on dendrobium orchids.
Ooh.
So for anybody who's listening today who has specific questions about orchids, tune into that and ask Gary, because he doesn't know everything about orchids, but he's pretty close.
You should call your class Just Ask Gary.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Just ask Gary.
Ask Gary, yeah, when it comes to orchids at least. He has a personal collection of like 1,000 orchids.
Oh, wow.
And he lived in the Keys years ago and collected orchids, and moved here and brought all of his orchids with him. And he propagates them, and he's done Facebook classes for us, and he's really popular for people who are interested in orchids. Because if you're asking about, putting the orchid outside, but now that it's starting to cool off, when do you need to bring it in? It all depends on what kind of orchid it is. Because I'm no expert on the different types, but I know there's a lot of different types.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would say this, we have a lot of experienced growers down here that also specialize only on orchids. If you come down to Homestead area and you go to a an orchid nursery, you can talk directly to our producers, our growers, and they will be more than happy to tell you how to care for that specific orchid you're taking home. And I really value that, because that connection and the wisdom that these growers have for so many years, they're just happy to share it with you. And there are association of orchid growers, they're always looking for any more exposure, and they are educators in their own location. So I encourage any of you that are coming down to Miami that also keep driving and keep going through Homestead and visit one of the orchids, because one, the prices are next to nothing. These orchid growers really, it's a lifestyle. They love what they grow, and they just want to share it with you, and they can tell you stories about it and how they bred it, where they find it. Some of them travel around the world just to collect more and bring them here. And it's interesting, because orchids are these beautiful plants that when you are younger, or you just see it on the retail store, you buy it for your mom or for an office mate, because it's blooming, it's beautiful. But then after that is when the trouble comes, right? You see the flowers dropping, and then the stem just dying, and you don't know what to do. We have usually the phalaenopsis ones, that are the ones that look like the lone two leaves, and you think they're going to be like that forever, and that's not true. It's a plant as well. It's just it's a little more I would say delicate plant than others. I was having one just near me, and one day I was just looking very careful, and I found a mealybug on it, and like, where did you come from? You were inside my living room, and the mealybug was right there, just like a picture to take opportunity. I'm like, how did this happen? I don't know. But, there is a lot of pests, and then the amount of light and the humidity and the amount of water. Many people think like more is always better. And with orchids, I found out the hard way that that's not true. Because when we are excited about a plant that we bring home, we just try to overwater it. And I don't know if we try to compensate and give them all the attention. And then I just learned that, with orchids, just treat them like you treat your cat. Yeah. You pet them a little, but not too much.
Yeah.
Let it do its thing.
Yeah. So
Gary has shown how to repot orchids, and he's funny because I know that there's a huge number of different kinds of orchids. Some like it really hot. Others like it relatively cool. Other ones like it really wet. Other ones, I've learned that with mine, I got one of the ones with the long bloom for a holiday. You water the heck out of it once a week, and then let it completely dry out. So every Saturday it gets watered. Probably the most common houseplant problem we see is people overwatering and keeping the soil too wet. Mm-hmm. Or even worse, they have it in a container with no drainage holes. So now it's kind of growing in mud. That's not good for any plant. But Gary will pull the orchids out, and he'll trim the roots, and he's, you need to be tough with them and repot them. And they do great for him. Like I said,
I don't think we had 2 mornings when it was in the 50s, and it's early in the year, so that was a fluke. That's not here to stay yet. So probably the orchid was okay, just for those. It was about 55 this morning, Bill?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
It was very nice. Everyone was outside like, oh, yes.
And I like what you were saying, Bill, like to remind everyone about the root system. That's something like we usually neglect, especially when we just start growing some plants for indoor or outdoor as well, because we're used to just check on the foliage, so on what we can see, but then if you go into the root system, sometimes you see your beautiful orchids and you said, okay, I think it's time to repot them, and you realize the poor root system has been and just going around and around, like there's no more space and aeration for them just to thrive like they should have. And this applies to any crop in general. Always, if you think your plant is becoming a little sad, or you usually have a fertilization program, and suddenly you start seeing something is off. I always said just turn around your plant and check on your roots, because that's where they take their nutrients from. So through the root system. But many times maybe we, because we're worried with what we can see on some symptoms on leaves and stems, we tend to forget about that important part of the plant as well.
Exactly, and we see that with both house plants and container plants, and also outdoor plants. People don't realize in the summer here we get a lot of rain. So a lot of the plants, the hedge, even common hedges, hibiscus, other things you have outdoors, if we start getting a lot of rain and you insist on running your irrigation on top of that, and maybe let's say you don't have the best drainage in the one corner of your yard where the plants are growing, it is possible for them to get too much water, and especially if they're trying to grow in standing water, we see a lot of root rot problems every summer. Usually by the end of summer, especially if it's been a wet summer like this year has been, we start to see root rots with things.
Yeah, and that's something that also applies down here, because we usually see ornamental crops grown in containers, and some field nurseries like you saw in the video. So when we have the rainy season, if we don't plan accordingly, there are some areas that flood, and with that brings a lot of lack of oxygen to the root areas, because if they are immobilized because of they're planted directly in the ground, we can think about maybe some palms, some trees, tropical and flowering trees, and then they don't drain. Then this favors some pathogens that may affect the root system and start with rotting diseases. And the same if we have maybe a garden and we just add an excess of water and we don't let them drain, or the container, the soil is not letting this water drain naturally, then it retains too much of moist when it's not needed anymore by the plant. Then this brings other issues like pathogens, like rotting pathogens, that just affect the plant as bad as we have other microorganisms as well.
Yeah, I think some people might think, oh, well, plants growing in Florida love tons and tons of water. And my lawn needs at least 10 inches of water a week to keep it green and healthy. I mean, you're not growing rice, you're just trying to grow a lawn. So
hydroponic lawn. When you mentioned the growing in the fields there, I haven't been to Miami. I've lived here in Florida for 42 years. I haven't been. One time we went to Alligator Alley when I was a child, and that turned into a disaster. So we went over to Naples. But further south I've been recently is Port St. Lucie. So, but what I hear is that you have a different kind of soil there than we do. We have the sand. We have sand. And I hear that you've got some like really good like coral-based soil, or
we do this
from the Lake Okeechobee and stuff. So
we have this tough soil, calcareous soil, like the coral reef, and this is important when they started to grow some crops, because remember in South Florida, not only we grow ornamentals or palms or in container nurseries, they also have the winter basket produce area where they grow vegetables. And during wintertime, actually, the fields are ready by now, by October, so they start planting peppers, corn, beans for Thanksgiving. When everywhere else it's getting ready for snow, we're getting ready to plant some sweet potatoes and all these other tropical crops that they do well under this lower 50s, 60s, 70s Fahrenheit. So, and we have tropical trees, tropical crops like avocados, we have guavas, we have lychees, mangoes. So all these grown well here. I remember when I just moved down here, when we finished grad school at Gainesville, Bill and I we were on a team together.
Yeah, we took a virology class together, and we were lab partners. So
yes, Bill and I, we were partners in crime.
now, Vanessa was a grad student in plant pathology, so she did better in virology than I did. But I passed. I made it out of school.
Yes, we're survivors. So anyway, I went down here, and I learned that in the past they used to use dynamite to actually make a whole to plant these trees. And so that tough is the soil down here, and also affects the pH levels if you want to grow on the
probably pretty high.
Yeah, it's higher. So when you usually send some soil reports, and in other areas of Florida, maybe about 7, it's a little concerning. Here it's the standard, and they make a note of it. Like if it's from South, you have to tell them if it's from South Florida and if it's from the ground, because that's kind of the normal ranges of pH for some crops. So, but the soil here is different, and usually all these ornamental crops are grown in containers, like I said, and that's why we always have to pay attention to the amount of water, fertilizers, and even any type of pesticides, traditional, biological, because of the media component, that water retention as well.
Now the vegetables and things, like I know Bill likes to go to the market in Homestead. Now is that more?
That's my favorite place to go. Is the huge farmers market on the weekends in Homestead.
On 248 on US 1?
Yep.
Yeah. Now is that kind of more like a muck soil from when they dried up the Everglades, and so that is a lot better? Is that?
Well, it depends also on the type of crops. That's why on the Everglades area, they grow this rice, so all this Maya kind of soil going northwest. So growers are very smart people. They already figure it out which soils and nutrients are available for the type of crops they're trying to produce at commercial level. We can get away with some containers at home and try to replicate the conditions, but imagine these commercial growers, they are doing their best against the environmental factors, which like a freeze event, or a frost event, they have many times to stay all night up to try to time when and if they have to turn on the irrigation so they can have like a little protection, just like igloos that do, like a little layer of water that timely good, it will protect their plants from damage. But if you apply it too early or too late, then it will end up actually making more damage than good.
And Bill, what do you have to say about that for homeowners here in Hernando County when you want to copy the strawberry growers who do that?
You were reading my mind. Yeah, that's the exact same thing that strawberry growers in Plant City here in Central Florida do. And we even have strawberry production here in Hernando County. We have you-pick strawberry farms and you-pick blueberries all around us. Don't try to protect anything in your yard by turning the sprinklers on a really, really cold night, because you have to do it exactly correctly. And if you don't, number one, you're going to damage your plants even worse. Here we go. Even worse than not running the irrigation. Number two, you may damage your plumbing. Pipe may freeze or something. So commercial growers are set up and they have the kind of equipment to do it. You have to keep a constant flow or supply of water on those plants. And homeowners can't really do that. Only commercial people do. So homeowners can, if you have any kind of sensitive crops, go out there and cover them with a sheet, with a cloth, a blanket. People, a really good reason to grow tropical type of plants like what they grow down there in Miami in containers is you're able to pull that in your garage on a really cold night. You could drag it out next to the swimming pool. Your pool is always going to stay a little bit warmer and help keep it warmer that way. But I know from being a member of a lot of different Facebook gardening groups, people in Central Florida kind of in general love the idea of growing all the tropical fruit crops, the dragon fruit and even the maize and mangoes, bananas and papayas you can't grow here. But they want to start growing all the really seriously tropical ones. And they'll do great here during the summer. I mean, goodness knows it gets hot and steamy and rainy here and sunny in the summer. The problem is going to be during the winter on those really cold nights. So you need to think about it, plan in advance. How do I keep this mango tree warm on a really cold night? And if you have a way of doing it, that's great. Give it a shot. I know people that have small greenhouses or they grow it in a very large container. Remember, big containers full of dirt get very heavy.
Yeah, with wheels would be,
yourself.
have wheels on that container would be the easiest.
Plan in advance. Have wheels on the bottom, have a dolly, have a big, strong next door neighbor to help you, whatever it might be. But definitely planning really is a important part of being able to grow these tropical fruits. But I know people in the area that are starting to grow dragon fruit, and they're actually getting fruit from it. I mean, after it takes a couple of years for it to get to the point where it's producing up here, but you can grow it here. Just got to keep it warm in the winter.
Right.
Yeah,
And when I tell people, and you mentioned, climate change, it is getting, things are different than they used to be. I tell people if you want to experiment, I would experiment lower in the horticultural zones, like, maybe with the 10s or something. I wouldn't try to experiment with an 8A or something you brought from New Jersey that was a 5 or something. But do know that you are experimenting. And with those extremes, I mean, maybe it hasn't happened in about 10 years, but it used to be not at all unusual to have 17-degree nights. And so then and those would be like Floritam lawn killing type nights if it lasted 4 or more hours. So, But we haven't had that happen in a while. But, below freezing in Hernando County is not at all unusual. We'll probably have 4 or 5 of those events a year.
And Lily, you bring a good point. Like now that we're shifting to a more virtual purchasing trends. So some of us that have been working from home or we are doing a lot of social distancing, we might be going into websites to get some seeds or buying online. And it's important to know and read the information about that beautiful plant you just look online and you would like to grow it yourself, and understand a little history and the biology of these plants, because maybe they look precious where they're coming from, and this could be one of the northern states, and when you bring it here and you just want to see the same, look the same, they might not be the same. They might even look different if they grow at all. So because it's important to know what are the hardiness zones that they like and they thrive at, like what are the ranges of temperatures they like when they're growing. And so that's something important when you are going to go online and just get excited, just buy a bunch of seeds, and then you understand why your pepper is not looking like it should be, or any other ornamental plant.
And just going by hardiness zone is a little deceiving also, because 9A and 9B run through Texas and California also.
Right.
And zone 9 in California is completely different from zone 9 in Florida.
Right, because they're arid. They're arid.
Here it's wet and humid and hot and steamy all summer. Out there it's not. So you need to look a little bit deeper to figure out, is it going to be fairly easy to grow successfully exactly where you live, whether it be Gainesville or Hernando County or Miami? Am I going to have to experiment with it and play with it and see if I can make it work? You need to look a little bit deeper than just the zone.
I used to get mad when I would watch, those HGTV programs that took place in California, because it was like they could grow whatever they want. It's just not fair. They can have an apple tree right next to a palm tree, and it is that difference of that aridness.
Yeah, and then like Bill mentioned, it's also important to see all the factors, and this is a learning curve mostly for all of us when we get a new plan. I mean, what worked for your neighbor or a colleague, master gardener, or might not work for you. So you have to take it as an opportunity to learn from that plan, what worked, what didn't, because we still haven't even touched the pathogens, all these diseases and pests that just love Florida. Just like tourists come to Florida for pests and they love Florida too. And because of the humidity and the excess of moist sometimes in foliage and root system, they just favor this explosion given the right conditions. So like Bill was saying, maybe in other states this plant doesn't have a issue that we do have for the same crop here, and it's because some of the factors are different. Not everything is the same. So don't it's just a learning process, and always ask. They're not what happens with a pest or insect, just it's going to happen though. It's not your fault.
I was thinking when you were talking about you could go down and talk to the orchid people and the different nursery owners. And I was thinking, if you're making a trip from our area to South Florida and you want to bring back plants, make sure you do go to nurseries. Don't just bring back plants out of your friend's yard, because you don't know if that plant has pests that you're bringing up to this area, or if it's an invasive exotic, or it could just be that it won't grow in this area. So it is much better to talk to the professionals, and hopefully they have a better hold on not letting the pests and things out for you to take home and bring to our area too.
Yeah, you want to be careful moving those things around, because you guys probably didn't know that October is National Firewood Safety Month.
Oh, no.
So we need to put something today on Facebook about that, about the dangers and problems with moving firewood from state to state to state. You move a lot of really nasty insect pests that way.
They don't want you to move firewood with more than 25 miles, I think is what it is.
Yeah, you should get the firewood from within 20-mile radius of where you're going to be burning it for a campfire or some kind of cookout or campfire in your backyard, even if you're going camping in a motorhome.
There's a whole website, I think, called don'tmovewood.com or something. You can find out that information. Yeah.
And also I think it's important to always pay attention if you bring a new plant into your garden, and you've been working so hard into keeping all your plants looking good and healthy. Just I always tell my clientele, treat them as the quarantine, as a PPQ stuff. Just put it aside, keep an eye on it, because a lot of diseases, especially diseases caused by fungi, bacteria, or viruses, they take time to incubate. Just like in humans, when you get sick, you start incubating the disease, and then it expresses as a symptom. Let's say a flu or something for a virus. The same happened with plants, and if in the case of insects or insect-like, like mites or any other nematodes, mollusks. So they're easier to spot, but if we haven't trained our eyes to actually ID these pests and determine whether it's just an insect that is a good fella, it's not actually a pest, or if it's actually a detrimental one. So it's a lot of levels that we learn from just observing and playing with your plant, checking the underside leaves, and that's that's what it kept us sane this year. Down here, checking our plants, discovering new insect, new pests. It's interesting, but it's a continuous labor. It's not just once in a while kind of inspection and you're done.
Okay, we have a question here. Oh, and this is from Zone 8A.
Ooh,
What would that be? What?
That's
Georgia?
Marion
Noise.
County. Yeah.
Okay,
Marion.
North Florida at least. So
Yeah.
Linda rooted some hydrangea cuttings, which that's great. A lot of the hydrangeas that you see at the Lawn and Garden Center do not do that well here in Hernando County. A little bit too far south, but a little bit further north of us, a lot of the commercially available hydrangeas do well. We do have a native hydrangea you don't see for sale very often. So she did some hydrangea cuttings. Do I pot and put in greenhouse, or do I put in the ground now? Zone 8A.
Then again, you got me with that. We don't
Yeah.
hydrangeas and the 10B zones down here. They're beautiful. So I would say, I don't know, in general, I'm not a specialist in hydrangeas either, but in general, just if you just the history of how you grew your hydrangea to tell you what you can replicate. Sometimes they like obviously cooler environments, and I will look into what kind of media components they like. If they like the ones that retain a little more moist or like more drainage. So, and then the ranges of, also the pH and EC in the container, because there are times for also transplanting even cuttings as well. So I will look in more information about that. And you can grow, cuttings you can start growing in a container and then put it in the ground. Some plants here, in South Florida, they grow it commercially in containers, but when you move it into the landscape industry, they move it into the ground, and they seem to thrive way better than in containers, because remember one thing, the container, a pot, it's a smaller area of soil and whatever you add to it, either water or nutrients, that in cooler environment, when it gets colder, it retains less heat too. So the plant is a little more vulnerable to some cold injury. But when it's in the ground, they kind of are better protected in the root area to sustain that lower temperature. So, there are pros and cons, and especially when they're tender plants, you are just transplanting from cuttings. So that's all I can say in general.
And I would think that if you have rooted cuttings, you should be able to keep them in the greenhouse over the winter, as long as they don't grow to the point where they've completely outgrown the pot. You may need to repot them, but you can keep them in containers if you're worried about them freezing and dying over the winter, and then wait until spring to transplant into the ground. So that should be fine.
And it depends on what you're looking for as well. We're not going to have the French hydrangeas turn blue here. You will just kill yourself trying to get that pH low enough to do that. So if that's what you're looking for, you're not going to be that successful at it. It's going to be pink or white or something like that. But as Bill mentioned, we do have the native oak leaf hydrangea, and that should grow in a fairly shady condition pretty much anywhere, wouldn't you think, Bill?
Yeah, but you don't see that for sale very often. I mean, you would at like a native plant nursery, but I'm not sure if I've ever noticed them at a big box store or a Walmart or a lot of the larger nurseries we have.
They should be, because they're cool.
Yeah, they should be more available, but I haven't really noticed them that much. But we got another question about orchids for sale without any type of soil or anything, like an air plant. Can any orchid grow like that?
Sure.
And the answer to that is no, because their orchids cover, and I'm not sure how many different species of orchids there are. There's a lot of them. Some grow in the ground. Other ones grow as air plants. They grow naturally up attached to a branch of an oak tree. We have native orchids here in Florida that grow up in the oak trees out in the woods. There are orchids from all around the world, and because there's such interest in them, people go around the world and get orchids and seeds and bring them back. So here we just have a huge variety. If you want to start a collection of orchids, I'm not sure how many you could realistically put together. Probably be 1,000 or more.
Yeah.
So some grow like air plants, some grow in the ground, some like it really, really hot and steamy. Other ones, believe it or not, like it cooler because of just where they naturally came from. Others, I know that they don't bloom unless they go through a period where it's maybe cool and wet or cool and dry.
A little dormant. Yeah.
With any orchid you have, you really have to do a little investigation to figure out as best you can what kind of orchid it is and what kind of conditions it's going to grow best in based on where it came from originally. And it could have come from anywhere in the world originally.
Yeah, so that's why if you have a local grower that actually have this in the nursery, ask them. They will know better how take care of that orchid, and if you have to spray it once a week, like Bill does every Saturday, rounds he goes, or it's something more often, or if he needs when he needs a transplant or not, into a bigger pot. So just ask your local grower, because when you buy it from a store, it maybe sometimes it's convenient since you're already picking up some produce from, but you don't have that knowledge, that the wisdom that the grower had to go through. And this is not just days crops, this could be years, just to be ready for you to buy it, just to start to keep growing it. So be patient, and if you can have your local grower tell you that, even better. Yeah.
Or you could always contact your extension office, because we have lots of resources for everything that I don't know. There are experts up in Gainesville, University of Florida. For other things like, let's say, orchids, I have two different master gardeners that are experts on orchids and have raised them for many, many years. They both moved here from the Florida Keys. Both lived in Key West. So
wow.
they started their collections down there, moved them up here. We have other master gardeners that are very knowledgeable on other certain areas. So, obviously follow us on Facebook. That's where, we do most of our teaching right now. So if I don't know the answer to something, we can find out for you.
Yeah, master gardeners. I mean, you just look in every county. Then sometimes we get crossover clientele from other counties, and we point you up to your local extension office, not because we don't want to deal with you, but because these people are actually more knowledgeable into local plants and environmental conditions that will be useful for you. So we have master gardeners. They're the most passionate people and volunteers working with these crops. And if you add more information, picture, images, instead of just saying a plant is dying, what can I do? It helps a lot.
And then they have the time to research it and get back with you as well. And as you're saying, master gardeners, what I always say I love about them is you're not going to find a master gardener volunteer. You ask them a question and they're not going to say, I don't know. What they're going to say is, I don't know. I want to find out, so it's like exciting for them too. So, yes.
Yeah, it's a valid answer. Sometimes, like I said, we don't know, but we have a huge network of specialists, plant people that maybe does their field of work. And if we can get more information on research-based facts for you, we'll try our best. That's our goal.
And sometimes we even get advice from other listeners here. Somebody else kind of jumped in with a comment on the hydrangeas, I think.
Yeah.
Pot it and grow it out some till a larger plant, then plant in ground when it's larger. Bring in during freeze since it is just starting. I'm in a cold area of Ocala. So, like I said, I'm sure it's not going to hurt it to hold it over during the winter, especially if you have a greenhouse. I mean, take advantage of that greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
know.
that space. Yeah, here we can barely maybe have a little stair or the front porch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know real estate is a little bit more expensive in your neighborhood than it is in mine. And you don't necessarily get big yards, and you have, I got acres for a greenhouse and for a food forest. And
No, yeah, I'm jealous because you guys can have even, these tunnels that now we learn that you can make these halfway tunnels and grow even some of your vegetables over there. There's some research, I think, with Mama Research Center, right?
Yeah.
They used to do a lot of that work there. It's amazing how new technology becomes available and ready to be used and adapted to our realities, because sometimes we cannot be buying high-end technology for maybe a couple of plants, but if we can adapt it to where we live and what we are expecting to see, that's even better.
exactly, yeah, I know that we have a number of followers who have home hydroponics setups, tunnels, greenhouses. They're very hands-on.
What
And we're
are
like
the
experimenting
tunnels?
with a lot of new ways to extend the season and grow things better.
What are the tunnels, Bill?
Oh, you can use anything from a low tunnel, which is basically generally the easiest way to do it is with either wire or PVC. So you bend it over and you make a tunnel over your plants.
Oh,
A
okay.
low tunnel would be to mostly cover it with cloth to help keep it warm on a really cold night here. But high tunnels are, think of a bigger version of that where it's high enough that you can walk through it. Almost like a cross between a low tunnel and a greenhouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here, because of the more of a variation in temperature, you can really extend your seasons that way. You can grow warm season things in the middle of winter. The Casey's have a high tunnel, and that's how they're able to grow tomatoes in the middle of winter, because it gets generally too cold here for tomatoes in the winter. But under a high tunnel, you can extend those seasons. Now, it's not problem-free. You have a lot of pest and disease problems in it, so you have to learn a certain amount. There's a lot of management that goes into it. But that's pretty cool, being able to play with it and try to grow more of your own food year-round or closer to year-round.
Yeah,
I'd be happy if I grow some herbs in my backyard and I'm able to dry them. That's and dragon fruit. I am going to get a dragon fruit and try growing a few of them. I'm committed to it now. And if I have problems with it, I'm going to send you pictures, Vanessa. And you can point me in the right direction.
I can point you on the right extension agent. We have an agent just for tropical fruit. That's how big the industry is down here, that we have just an extension agent devoted to tropical fruit. It's amazing. When you come down to Homestead next time you come visit, now it's been I've seen more and more dragon fruit nurseries. I think they are it's been more adapted, and we have some other crops as well that I'm starting to see. Lychee, well, it depends on also the cold, and then we're seeing research by a professor at our local research and education center doing investigation on vanilla. It's promising, and I'm excited to see what it comes to it, to just add more possibilities to use our environment, because I don't know, many of you know that are a little northern Florida, that when you come down here, you won't find greenhouses like you speak of. For me, it's like, what is that? No, I know what it is, but we don't get to see it down here because we usually have the opposite problem or just situation where it's too hot and it's too humid.
You already live in a greenhouse. You don't need it.
It's steamy all the time. 364 days out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you will see here, and I just want to bring it to your attention, is usually called shade houses.
Yeah.
Which are open areas where they grow the container plants on the open, And actually, you have to add a layer of shade and different openings that provide a little less or more percentage of shade for these plants, because otherwise the other extreme, which is too hot or too much light, might affect these plants. And one of the applications our growers do is also adapt these plants for interior scape. Remember, we talk about the landscape, which is outdoors on these beautiful resorts we see, hospitals, schools, parks. They're out there. They're also an industry that grows specific plants under certain amount of light that will thrive in offices, because offices don't have this amount of heat and light as well. So it's you will see a lot of shade houses in here when you come down, or compare in contrast with greenhouses when you start going through Central and North Florida.
Yeah, we use shade houses here too. So a lot of people will, their structure is more of a greenhouse in the winter and shade house in the summer. And by combining the two, you're able to kind of stretch the time of year when you can grow different things. But I think it's about time for us to start working towards wrapping it up here. Let me see real quick if we have any other questions. Here we go. Gail kind of squeezed in at the very end here. Do you grow muscadine grapes that far south, down in Miami? They grow that far south?
No, that I know of.
Okay, they do grow here in Central Florida. We have U-Pick muscadine grape farms, and there's even a muscadine wine industry.
Ooh.
Which some people either love it or hate it. I like it, but muscadines taste a little bit differently. They have a kind of distinctive taste. So muscadine wine, either you're going to really like it or you're really going to hate it. So no in between.
They have different varieties they've developed too. I like the Carlos muscadine wine.
Yeah, there's a little variety between the different types, and there's different colors, but there's still kind of that overall. Muscadine grapes don't taste the same as grocery store Thompson seedless.
No.
They're just a little bit different.
They're all hybridized versions of our native grape.
Yeah.
And that's what we can grow here without getting the Pearson's disease that, you know, like your California grapes or something. They're just not going to do well here. So
yeah, we have wild muscadines. If you're out hiking through the forest, you can still find wild muscadines growing out there.
You don't even go hiking; you can just see it. It's you know, on any kind of undeveloped lot. But you know what I've learned this week, Bill? The native grapevine that we see. I always assumed I never saw any grapes because I figured the critters got it. 90% of the native grapevine we see are male. And it's really hard to find the female.
And you will occasionally see fruit, because there's a lot of species of muscadines. You'll occasionally see fruit on those wild ones alongside of the highway and cleared areas. They really go like gangbusters in
because I get the sun. Yeah.
They get really, really tiny grapes. But if you go walking way out in the woods, there are varieties out there that get proper sized grapes. Huh. And they're usually really huge old vines, and the fruit's usually way, way, way up in a tree. So whether or not you can get to it or not, I don't know. But they're out there. Mm-hmm. Ken Morgan showed me where there's some. And the vines has obviously been growing there for many years. The vines were, gosh, must have been 3 inches.
And he lives in a very, very wet area. So that's something to keep in mind, too.
Yes.
Well, we have
Gales has yellow leaves on it. Not sure what's going on. Too much water. Last year we moved our rabbit pens next to it for fertilizer. So muscadines, I know, are deciduous, so they drop all their leaves. You probably noticed that over the winter. So they should be fixing to drop their leaves soon. I'm not sure exactly when. In the fall they do that. A lot of times if a plant has just really yellow leaves, it's from too much water, too little water, or nutrient deficiency.
Up until about 2 weeks ago, we had a lot of rain.
So. Yes, I wouldn't think that too little rain is going to be an issue. Yeah. It may be too much rain, because almost all these different fruit producing plants, and I know even down in Miami, you might think that, oh, well, things that grow in Miami love to sit in floodwaters. No, they don't. Avocados and mangoes can't sit there in standing water for days on end. They'll die. Same thing here with pine trees, oak trees, and I'm sure muscadines. If it's in a wet spot in your yard where it's sitting in standing water for 1, 2, 3 days, that's probably going to damage the roots. So you may want to look at possibly too much. Maybe it has gotten too much water, and that's what the problem is.
Yeah. And then if you have any other symptoms and you want to talk to your master gardener, also remember, like this a lady just mentioned, she did a good description, all yellow leaves, because I was wondering, is this the lower end of the plant, the upper? Because then it depends if some nutrients are mobile or not. And then the more information you can get to your local extension agent or master gardener, and like I said, even images, not blurry, please, or not far away, where there are 3 plants and you don't know which one you're talking about, that better, because sometimes just by going step by step and seeing if there is not other factor that is also enhancing this symptoms, like it could be, yellowing could be also by, some high pressure of some sucking insects as well, but so that chlorophyll is just being lost there. But I don't think that's the issue because this person didn't mention it. So, but and then again, the container, if you already know that you applied fertilizer last year, how often do you apply it, or you just keep records of it? It doesn't have to be anything too complex, just a notebook. When did you start seeing symptoms? What did you apply? The active ingredient of it, and if you saw a difference or not. And if you continue with your plan that you really like, then like a kind of the medicine that kind of works for it. And if it doesn't, what change or not.
And the rabbit cages are going to be giving you a lot of nitrogen, right, Bill? So I don't know if that could be too much nitrogen with the rabbit cages being there, or
well, then again, it comes down to how many rabbits you have, how much manure they're putting on it.
Right.
Rabbit manure isn't like overly strong. It's not like chicken manure.
Okay.
So there's a lot of potential specific things going on there.
Yeah, and we need to understand also the interaction between nutrients. There could be macro and micronutrients. If sometimes the pH is too high on the container, it might actually avoid absorption of iron. And that's if it's extreme, then also start showing some yellowing as well. So, but this is something again to discuss with your the extension agent, master gardener, and show images, because you are seeing this plant every day, and of course you're worried about it. But for us, it's the first time we're hearing about it. We need to just rule out other factors and to get you to the right guidelines.
Exactly. So there's so many different potential things that could be going on. We need to have as much information as we can get to start excluding, well, it's not that, to hopefully work our way down to exactly what it is and then come up with a suggestion for how to deal with it. But you should be happy to know that Cindy now knows this homestead has a lot of nurseries. So hopefully the next time she's passing through, heading to the Keys, she'll stop and do some shopping and fill the car up on her way back. Stuff it full of crotons and palm trees and whatever else she could fit in there, I guess.
Yeah, if it's healthy and within Florida standards, and you can get to talk to the growers, even better. You get the better experience out of it. And if not, you still know where to come back and ask them, hey, this didn't work.
Make sure it's a palm tree that'll grow here.
Yes. You have so many beautiful palms down there that, boy, are going to freeze dead here in the winter.
We can only have about a fraction of what you have.
No, but
there are many people, they want the The palms that'll grow down there, and they'll, like Bill said, they'll do fine here until we have a freeze. We've got tons and tons and tons and tons of queen palms everywhere, and I know down in your area they're almost becoming invasive. But we get a good freeze, there's going to be a whole lot of dead queen palms around.
Yeah,
here.
palms are a slow crop that will show some cold injury way later than other crops. Like if you see some cold injury maybe in tomatoes, palms can take up to months, because remember the growth, the new growth take a lot from the to show. So that is another topic. Palms by themselves.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
We will have to have you come back and we'll just talk all about palms.
Oh.
Because we get a good number of palm tree questions, and people sometimes plant palms that aren't going to do well in this area. Goodness knows we have some new diseases that are problems. So do you work a lot with palms, or is it more landscape foliage plants?
Yeah, I would say that's mostly on the landscape side. And we have a new professor in plant pathology in our Fort Lauderdale Research and Education Center, which I met because he visited a lot of homestead nurseries. So on palms there, I work mainly with maybe the liners and some of the pathogens affecting them, but the diseases we see are usually because they're already installed or on the landscape already. So, but I'm happy to help you find the right person, because we have so many diseases happening on some palms, like the decline, palm disease, have Dr. Brian Bader, and then we have other professor working on pathogens too. So like we mentioned before, if we don't know a specific answer, at least we will know who to put you in contact with. We have state specialists that they dream, eat, and talk only about one disease and one crop, and they're the best people you can talk to, because they don't have an ulterior agenda. They just want to share all the information they find about how to keep these crops alive.
And I know a nice thing about doing this all virtually is it's so much easier to get those researchers to just go online and help teach a class instead of having to spend half a day driving here and driving home. I had a class, it was about a month or so ago, with Dr. Vance Whitaker. He's the University of Florida's main strawberry breeder.
Oh.
And he was great. It was growing strawberries for homeowners. And he said, nobody has ever asked him before to teach a class to the public. I said, well, will you do one for me? He said, I'd love to. He's a real nice guy. Worked really well. So because, obviously, they grow strawberries all over here. It's like, why can't I grow them in my backyard? And why am I not successful? It's because you're getting all your advice from Facebook groups and not from University of Florida. So sometimes that accurate information really helps.
Yeah, so some information based on facts, not on an ulterior agenda or people wanting to sell you something. So it's I think we have a great and solid network across the state in different areas and different fields of expertise. So we're very glad to have these specialists working on these crops and new crops as well. It's I think there is a lot of potential even for common crops that we always know, like myths and stories. Oh, you should do this, but it's all based on economic importance and grants, right? to do more research about it.
Yep.
Okay, guys, I think you need to wrap it up here because I have another meeting I have to go to shortly, like I'm sure we all do in this, day of Zoom and Facebook Live and everything else. One thing I wanted to remind everybody watching us about is this coming Monday night, we are going to have a Facebook watch party. And we had a class a while back with special guest Danae Wolf, and she is with Ohio State University. She actually works for the university, and she is a professional photographer. And she gave a class on macro garden photography on a budget, all kinds of little tips and tricks about equipment to get, how do you get really good pictures of really teeny tiny little bugs. And I learned a lot because, I mean, the best I usually get is kind of with my phone, and it comes out blurry, and you only see 3 of the legs. So, you know, I need a little help in that area. But we're going to be re-showing that class Monday evening at 6:30 p.m. So go ahead and check out our Facebook page for information on that, and let me go ahead and show this. If you're ever curious about what kind of classes we have coming up, who's going to be on next week's plant clinic, what is the link, where do I go, what do I do? If you just go to www.hernandoextension, all one word, .com, everything you need to know about our upcoming classes is there. A full listing, all of Lily's classes are there, and when they're going to be on, whether it's Zoom or Facebook Live. All the upcoming plant clinics are there, the link to get on. All of my classes are there. Everybody else in the office who does classes, all of theirs are listed there too. So kind of your one-stop shop for learning and links and information on all of our classes. So Vanessa, you have anything else you want to share?
I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to share some stories back and forth from Central and South Florida and allow me to join you today. Anyone is welcome to come to Homestead and see our retail nurseries. I hope that video was educational for you to understand there are different type of nurseries, but the retail ones, they open the doors for you. Right now, following the social distancing, you can just still drive by through Chrome and wear your mask and go and see a lot of beautiful succulents, orchids, foliage, palms, indoor plants, outdoor plants, native. I don't know. You just name it different.
I know you guys grow everything down there pretty much. I mean, you can't even write an entire list.
Yes, air plants, you name it. So just come down if you ever have to come this way. And thank you for your time, and I hope to see you around.
Okay, we'll definitely have you come back. And yeah, the next time I have to go down there, I'll definitely get a hold of you. And if you can set me up with some nurseries to visit, take pictures, shoot video. If they have a strong enough signal, do Facebook Live. Because I think it's a really, especially during the dead of winter, it's a very, very nice place to go and visit. And like I said, I always plan on going to that huge farmers market in Homestead.
Good. Yeah, you should. We have a lot of seasonal crops here, and it's just good to enjoy winter in South Florida.
Exactly. Okay, well, thanks again, guys, and thank you, everybody else. We'll be back here again next Thursday, and until then, we will see you later. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.